To get into what I really want to talk
Stephen
about.
Miller. Katy Perry looks like the nice girl from the neighborhood who went to college and came back all screwed up from the first year of college, like shaved her head and now she's a lesbian. And that's Katy Perry doing this interview with DeRay McKesson over at DeRay McKesson is a Black Lives Matter activist, and here is Katy Perry doing an interview with DeRay McKesson, basically apologizing for the great crime of being popular and white.
I've made several mistakes, even in like the This Is How We Do video about how I wore my hair, and having a hard conversation with one of my empowered angels, Cleo, about what does it mean? Why can't I wear my hair that way? Or what is the history behind wearing the hair that way? I listened and I heard and I didn't know, and I won't ever understand some of those things because of who I am. I will never understand. But I can educate myself, and that's what I'm trying to do along the way. And even in, my intention to like appreciate Japanese culture, I did it wrong with a performance, and I didn't know that I did it wrong until I heard people saying I did it wrong. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes someone to say, out of compassion, out of love, hey, this is where the origin is, and
okay,
do you understand?
It's unwatchable. I'm sorry. I'm losing brain cells at such a rapid pace that I'll be dead by the end of this clip if we actually play the entire thing. So what did Katy Perry do wrong? Okay, so Katy Perry supposedly wore her hair in stereotypical black fashion in this video, This Is How We Do. Okay. I guess now she has stereotypically taken the hair off like a neo-Nazi. So that's exciting. So she's culturally appropriated the hair from neo-Nazis, which is just awesome. Or from the movie The Fifth Element. I can't really decide which. Now, I love that she's so sad about, oh my God, it's just terrible. First of all, just the setting of this thing is amazing. It's amazing. This whole just, snowflake should be written all over this clip because they're sitting on this white couch, cross-legged. Who sits cross-legged doing an interview? I mean, this is just the most ridiculous, stupid thing. They should be smoking pot and wearing hemp clothing while they do this idiocy. And then for her to drop it's cultural appropriation. I don't know how much I've hurt people. Yes, I'm sure black people all over the United States were hurting deeply because Katy Perry wore her hair a particular way in a music video. I was told that black people were really suffering in this country. If that's true, it seems to me that the last of their concerns would be Katy Perry wearing her hair in a particular way. And she says, oh, well, I did a concert in Japan. Let's be clear about cultural appropriation. Okay, when it comes to cultural appropriation is a good thing because it means that cool things cross cultural lines. Okay, that white couch is cultural appropriation from Sweden or something. It's from cultural appropriation from IKEA. And the microphone is cultural appropriation from whoever invented the microphone because every invention is an outgrowth of the culture that created it, apparently. All just nonsense, all just stupidity. But this is the virtue signaling that is necessary from the entire Hollywood left and that they feel a necessity to push. It's really, really foolish. And again, it just demonstrates that the culture is more important than politics when it comes to shaping how people think. Katy Perry saying this kind of dumb stuff to DeRay McKesson. DeRay McKesson should not be in any legitimate company. You talk about people who shouldn't be legitimized. DeRay McKesson is one of them, a guy who did an entire lecture at Yale about how riots are justified and violence is justified. So, just ridiculous. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
DeGeneres, and Ellen DeGeneres is a famous and well-beloved Hollywood lesbian. So the reason that is relevant, her sexuality, is because Ellen DeGeneres tweeted this out yesterday. This is a tweet of her on Katy Perry's birthday, and it's a picture of Ellen DeGeneres staring directly into Katy Perry's cleavage from about 6 inches away as her partner Portia de Rossi laughs next to her. I think it's Portia de Rossi, correct? I'm pretty sure. And Katy Perry is kind of smiling into the camera slightly awkwardly. And it says, "Happy birthday, Katy Perry. It's time to bring out the big balloons," right? A direct reference to her breasts. Now, let me just suggest, if any man tweeted out this exact photo, if Ellen's head were Harvey Weinstein's head, we would be talking about how this was more evidence of sexual harassment in Hollywood. Ellen DeGeneres is a very, very powerful host. And the fact that Katy Perry seems to be smiling here is not the issue, right? I mean, there are plenty of pictures where Harvey Weinstein is posing with smiling women who he sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. The fact is that there's a double standard with how we treat these situations, and as I've been now saying for weeks, we need some sort of singular standard as to what constitutes appropriate behavior and what does not. Ellen DeGeneres is a lesbian, which means that this is her acting upon objects of her sexual desire. If a man did the same thing, we would be saying, this is totally inappropriate. How dare he? And it doesn't matter that Katy Perry's smiling. It just shows how toxic masculinity has infused everyone. The whole point here is the double standard. And the double standard applies everywhere. Mark Halperin just was essentially fired from NBC News. He said he resigned or took time off to spend more time with his genitals. But in any case, Mark Halperin, the accusations are that he allegedly sexually assaulted up to 5 women, sexually harassed or assaulted up to 5 women, that he would push them up against the wall, grope them, press his genitals against them. This is Mark Halperin, the guy who wrote Game Change, very famous reporter. He's on NBC News every day, has talked about sexual assault in the most indignant of terms. Sexual assault is horrible. Sexual harassment is horrible. And then meanwhile, in the back room, he's grabbing the interns, apparently. This goes to show you also the not only do we have a double standard with regard to people we like, we have a double standard with regard to ourselves. The stuff that we do, we human beings have a unique capacity to do this. We can engage in many of the sins that we condemn other people for, and the mark of a good human being is that you think enough about this to think whether, in fact, you are upholding the standard that you seek to promulgate, that you're upholding the standard that you seek to push. If you're not doing that, then we all need to do better, and I think we can all do better on these scores. But the reason I'm pointing out these 3 differing scenarios, the HW, the Ellen DeGeneres, and the Mark Halperin situations, is because these double standards have been in place for a very long time, and we need to decide as a society what sort of behavior we are willing to accept. I think the behavior should be this. Men do not touch women without their permission. That's the behavior. Right? We're done here. And it's not the same thing if a man asks out a girl to a bar. It's not the same thing if a man says that a girl is beautiful today. It's not the same thing if a man says that he likes a girl's dress. Okay, a woman's dress. Not the same thing at all. We need to make some actual separations here. But instead, what I feel like this has devolved into is now we're just, as usual, conversations in America devolve into who's the victim today. And then we all come out and say, it's terrible that person was victimized. And then we set no standard by which we can determine whether someone is a victim or not until they proclaim themselves a victim, at which point we say they're a victim. Right? So if we had found out the H.W. Bush, Heather Lind thing just through a third-party source, not through Heather Lind, then we would have had to decide as a society, is this something okay or not? She declared that she was offended, therefore it was bad. If she had declared that she was not offended, then it would have been fine. Right? Action is not subjective when it comes to societal standards. It's not subjective. You don't get to decide whether an activity is good or bad for me, right? I, as a member of society, determine whether an activity is good or bad. And I'm getting kind of tired of this routine where something is not harassment so long as I'm not offended, but it is harassment if I am offended. We're going to need to draw some lines if we actually want to enforce those lines. Well, I want to talk a little bit about another story that's pretty devastating out of the state of Texas yesterday, and then I want to get into what I really want to talk about today at length, which is the split inside the Republican Party. But first, I want to say thank you to our...
When you say that with your tweet, for example, you say, so Jason Collins is a hero because he's gay, our standard for heroism has dropped. I mean, you don't think that actually lends to this idea that perhaps some people are not as open and as accepting in this country? You know, I mean, who are you to judge and say whether or not he should be considered someone who is a hero and inspirational to other young men out there?
Well, here's actually the problem that I have. I think that you can accept and tolerate people's behavior, and that, demonstrates non-homophobia. I think that it is ridiculous to suggest that just because you're not celebrating, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, somebody coming out of the closet, and you think, it's relatively unimportant in the grand scheme of things because people should be able to live their lives the way that they want. I don't really understand. There were folks who were saying that that was a homophobic tweet. I'm still confused as to how it's homophobic simply to say that you don't think it's a heroic move in today's America to come out of the closet the same way that it was maybe 20 years ago.
Jared, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, what's your response to, to Ben's take here?
Yeah, it's truthfully, it's a little disturbing hearing some of that, but I get it. I heard, after I came out and I'd hear a lot of, well, what do you need to tell us for anyway? The bottom line is that there's something that straight people, I think, by and large, unless they, are recognizing this or have been told or educated on it, don't quite recognize, I think, that the luxury that it is for somebody who is gay to live openly and authentically, to go through life and not be scared to go to a work social function, to go out with your friends at work, but what it means to make up some excuse to not go because you're afraid they're, out at some function, ask you some questions you might not want to answer. The level of heroism, I mean, we have heroes every single day in all aspects of life. Jason Collins didn't do what he did to become a superhero. Jason Collins did what he did. And again, I'm not inside his head, but I'm just guessing. to live openly and authentically, to live his life. Now, it's unfortunate because don't think that the person who's coming out wants to go and share this news to the world, because it's the most personal news you could share, and it's the news that you would fight and say, this is none of your business. But at some point, we live in a world, you're a public figure, you want to live your life. Well, at some point, someone says, you know what, that's enough. I want to live my life. You have a problem with it, that's not my problem. So I don't think, and I wonder also, with Ben, maybe when he sent out that tweet, and I sent tweets before that I think, well, am I really saying what I want to say, or am I kind of just going against the grain with an idea of something? And I don't necessarily, I can't speak for Ben, but I don't understand where would there be any vitriol? Why is there any problem with people having, say a certain day to celebrate, or for this to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated? You mentioned, this has been going on. Well, you know what hasn't been going on? We have not had an active pro athlete in the United States, in North American, our four major pro sports, a male athlete come out. Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova, Cheryl Swoops, Brittany Griner. There has been a different reaction. And the same way as I think back to, let's say in college, we were all in college and we all went out and did some crazy things sometimes. And as somebody who was closeted at the time, I was well aware that it was okay for, say, maybe two of my girlfriends, if they wanted to go off and experiment on some different things in life. But it was never cool for two guys. There's a macho effect there. We've gone several years since then. And I think it's okay now it's not that weird for even a professional basketball player to say, yeah, I'm gay.
Well, let's let Ben respond. I mean, Ben, do you have anything to say to that as to, what Jared...
No, I totally agree with a lot of that. I mean, I especially agree with what he said at the very end, where he says that, it's not that strange anymore for folks to be gay. And that's why I think that it's a mistake for the media to portray it as though this is some groundbreaking moment, when the truth is there is no resistance here. There is nobody who is really coming out and saying, I have yet to hear the response really saying that Jason Collins should not have come out of the closet. I'm still, no one has said that.
But the thing is, Ben, you have to realize,
it's a great triumph. I'm wondering why.
Let me read a comment from one of our viewers. This one's from the Norwegian 76, who says, this is the Republican way to deal with social issues, pretend that they do not exist. And I think that he does have a little bit of a point there, in that there still is a lot of bigotry in this country. We still have laws on the books that deny people equal rights when it comes to the right to be able to visit their loved ones in the hospital, the right to be able to marry openly if they are in a gay relationship. And so, you can't say that everything is fine and we're at a good place in the country where there still aren't, inhibitions to people being able to live their lives.
This is what I think is the real agenda in large part. I think the idea of equating, support for traditional marriage with tremendous anti-gay sentiment that would put Jason Collins back in the closet is silly, and I think it's actually the real political agenda underlying a lot of the kind of coverage of issues like this. We're all happy for Jason Collins. He can live the life that he wants to live.